Welcome once again to Cinemaholics, the major motion podcast, where we talk about the biggest and best films coming to theaters and streaming online. From the San Francisco Bay Area, I'm John Negroni, film editor for InBetweenDrafts.com. And from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he's a freelance film writer. And Will Ashton, how many times do I have to tell you, you can't use sign language when we're doing a podcast? This is audio only.
My, as I live and breathe, it's John Negroni back on the mic, talking about the films.
I watched a movie. I've watched 2 movies in the last 3 months.
Get out.
One of them is this one.
Yeah. What inspired you to watch this one before Challengers?
Before Challengers, I had an ability to go to the screening because the Challenger screening was, I think I was in Japan at the time. I was either in Japan or LA. I don't know. I've been traveling every weekend, and I've been very busy. No screenings for John. Not lately.
Well, I'm just glad you got to see a movie again. Yeah. I'm busting your chops a little bit, but I'm just glad John Negroni could sit in a theater, experience the magic of cinema.
I'm glad I got to see Will Ashton in person, in the flesh, this past weekend. Yeah, we were in Palm Springs together.
That is true, yeah. So we got to see each other in person but the second time and ever.
Yes, that's right. We went to Mike Overholtz's wedding, and Mike Overholtz, our co-host on Mad Men. And Will Ashton, did you want to tell the listeners about another certain dream that came true for you, a wish upon a star?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't planned initially because we were kind of just figuring things out sort of on the fly. I mean, we knew relatively that when we got to Palm Springs, we were going to go to Mike Overholtz's wedding. We decided, we thought it might be nice. We're still going to
do that. But no, I literally picked you up from the airport from the day before the wedding, and I was like, Will Ashton, we're going to Disneyland.
Yeah, you were like, pack your bags. I'm like, my bags are packed.
You're like, yeah, I just got off the plane. I gave you your Mickey ears, and because you had never been to a Disney park. You had never been to Disney World, Disneyland, Disney Springs, Disney bathrooms, never.
Nope, I haven't had that experience until not even a week ago today.
That's right. You had a one day in Disney, and I wish folks could have seen us traipsing through the park in a mad dash the entire day, because I was determined to get you on every single ride, decent ride at least.
I was maybe naive, but there was a small part of me that was hoping that we'd be in line talking about whatever sort of thing. Sometimes things that would never make it onto an episode of Cinemaholics. And, I was hoping at one point someone's ears would perk up. They slowly turn around, say, I recognize that voice. And I recognize that other voice. Where do I remember them?
Yeah. Well, you're wearing your Cinemaholics shirt now, but we didn't wear our Cinemaholics merch. That would have sealed the deal. I think if there was one regret, I could sense you didn't get to meet Mickey Mouse. He was,
no, he was tied up. As it were.
Not literally, but we literally went up to the crowd. We were going to wait in the line, and the cast member was like, "Get out of here."
He's like, "I need to take a smoke break. You kids can wait."
That's right. I don't care, Will Ashton, if this is your only time going to a Disney park in 30 years. The kid in you has got to wait.
But he needs his nicotine.
Well, hey, look, it's fitting because we're talking about a movie that's technically a Disney movie. It used to be Warner Brothers, but 20th Century Studios, 20th Century Fox got a hold of the Planet of the Apes franchise, and here we are with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Maybe that'll be a name of a theme park in Disneyland someday. You can go to the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Probably
Disney World, because they have the Animal Kingdom. So you already have 2 words there. They have the Avatar thing. Kind of fits in.
That'd be great if Animal Kingdom, to promote the Planet of the Apes, they just are like, you know what? The monkeys are taking over. They killed Goofy.
Goofy can't talk, and he's in a cave at one point.
Pluto isn't saying anything.
We did talk about the last one of these movies, the one that Matt Reeves did. He did 2 of them, right? He did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and he did War of the Planet of the Apes. We talked about War on this podcast, our first year.
For the Planet.
War for the Planet of the Apes. It was a war. I got to maintain, though, I still think the names of these movies have always been wrong. You just switch them around. Because so Rupert Wyatt did the first one, right? So Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I feel like that should have been the third one. And then Dawn of the Planet of the Apes should have been the first one because it was the dawn, it was the beginning. War for the Planet of the Apes should have been the second one because the second one was like a full-on war between the, like, I don't get it. Like, why did they keep doing this? Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at the very least is like, okay, yeah, close enough. Sort of. But I have a feeling the next movie is going to be more fitting for Kingdom.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could argue that Dawn could be Kingdom and that Rise should be Dawn and this should be War for the Planet of the Apes. And yeah, like you said,
I wouldn't say this one should be war. It's not really a war. It's like a, I don't know. We'll talk about it, but it's not a war.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on here about like, you know, like the idea of like religious allegories and the idea of like people taking a Messiah figure and miscontorting his words. And I feel like in the past, in human history, not ape history until now, like, you know, wars have been started because people say like, this is what the Lord, the Bible says of us. And someone else is like, no, this is what the Bible says. And it's like, take your ass outside. We're going to fight.
But at least there's not really two armies though, right? You really just have, and I'll set it up, but like, you really just have like one kind of like kingdom that's subsuming these clans that stand no chance against. So it's not really a war. I feel like the next movie could be a war. Like, all right, we got to fight these people or whatever. But
that cash has already been spent. They're going to have to call it something else.
So we have Wes Ball directing the movie this time. Wes Ball, who did Maze Runner movies, which I maintain those Maze Runner movies they punch above their weight. They did okay. The first one was a good time. I thought the second one was fine.
The third one
was a little bit like, all right, let's just finish it for the sake of it. But you know,
I feel like the second and third one are pretty interchangeable for me. Like I know we reviewed the third one on this show, but if I were to remember anything from it, I feel like I would just say the things that happened in the second one. Like I don't really, and then vice versa. Like I feel like I might say things that were in the third one. I just don't really remember. Outside of the visuals, I don't remember all that much that happened in those last two films. The first one's the only one that really sticks into my memory.
Well, it has a more unique premise. The first one, there's the mystery of like, what's the maze? Second one is Scorch Trials, right? And so that one was a little bit more of like a conventional action movie. It's like, we got to go to the place to do the thing, to get the thing. The third movie was a little bit more of that, you know?
Sure.
So yeah, I get what you're saying for sure. Death Cure, I think, was the last one. The second and third, they're not as interesting like as a premise, but I thought Wes Ball did an okay job with those movies. I kind of get why they brought him on for this, because they kind of already have the effects and everything like kind of figured out at this point of like, we know how to make these apes just like incredibly like expressive and wonderful to look at. We just need somebody who like knows what they're doing with like practical effects and, you know, give us a solid, you know, movie coming out of a pretty whatever script. In this case, I wouldn't say the script of this is whatever, but it's kind of boilerplate. This is Josh Friedman writing. The premise of it, and I want to hear your take on it, because I haven't read any reviews for this, but I've kind of peeked at like some impressions around this movie, some of which are kind of negative and I kind of agree with, but I don't come out of this movie negative or anything. But okay, so the premise here is that it's 300 years after War for the Planet of the Apes. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen that first trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and we haven't even talked about the original Planet of the Apes, but you know, at this point. But this is 300 years after the death of Caesar, the main character, the main protagonist of those first three movies. And we're following a totally new character who is played in mocap by Owen Teague. So this new character is a young ape named Noah, who is kind of this like, younger ape. He's kind of like coming into his own in this very peaceful clan of apes who raise eagles. And there's an attack on his village from, as we've already kind of alluded to, this like roguish kingdom that's like, you know, hostile, you know, and going around and trying to like enslave other ape clans in order to fulfill some like nefarious purpose, basically. And most of the movie, I'd say at least half of the movie, is Noah going on this kind of like hero's journey, you know, pretty typical kind of like Star Wars thing. He collects some friends and allies. He meets probably the best character in the movie, this orangutan kind of ape played by Peter Macon in mocap, who is our sort of like, oh yeah, Noah doesn't know who Caesar is. It's been so long. The original Caesar has kind of faded away in terms of his legend, but there are some people who hold on to it and pass it on. So the movie kind of also has like the religious allegory you're talking about. It's like, no, this Jesus was cool. He was a socialist. Like, it's like that kind of thing. But other people are misusing Caesar's legacy in order to obtain power, to what you're saying. So, Catholic, Protestant, all that flavor. And then he also befriends, I guess befriends is a strong word, a human who is a little bit smarter than most humans, because if you recall, in this world, the virus that came out in the past 3 movies, it makes the apes smarter, but the side effect is that it's gradually making humans dumber. So, many humans can't even talk. Humans just have been kind of like reverted into this sort of like primal caveman state. And the apes now run the show. They kind of run the planet. And the human that Noah befriends and starts to have like kind of a big through line with narratively is played by Freya Allan, who has multiple names in the movie. Nova is their initial name, but yeah, she kind of like leads them on the like, oh, there's something else going on here you need to know about. And so that's kind of the movie. There are a couple other, people who show up in this. I don't want to give away one particular cameo that I didn't know. I didn't know they were in this movie. I don't know if they show up in the trailer, but I don't want to say it. But yeah, that's kind of the premise. It's a lot simpler. Like War for the Planet of the Apes was more meditative, right? It was a little bit more, it was deep. Like, there wasn't a ton of action. There was action, but it was a little bit more of like philosophical and really trying to take this premise to a deeper level. Whereas this movie is, I kind of called in my review, it's more of like a blockbuster thrill ride. It's more something like, that, like you said, it would show up in the Animal Kingdom. It's like, it's got a story, it's got a point, and a message, but it's really here for the action and the effects.
Yeah, tonally, it's probably most akin to Dawn, maybe even somewhere between Rise and Dawn, in the sense that, like you said, it's lighter than War, certainly. That's totally the darkest and the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Most
gritty?
Yeah, gritty of the Planet of the Apes movies, as it were. And Dawn like has some gruff to it as well, but it's also like it's a crowd pleaser. It's a blockbuster. It's an action film. And yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to bring someone like Wes Ball into this, because for whatever faults the Maze Runner movies might have, as a director, especially a first-time director with that first film, as far as feature films go, I think he establishes he's pretty good about establishing worlds and like a sense of place and environments, and, to get us reacquainted with this world and, kind of setting up the premise of a new series of films. It makes sense. He's kind of like J.J. Abrams that way. Like I think he's good at kind of getting the ball rolling. I would hope, not to, push him out of the director's chair. I would kind of like to see someone maybe a little bit more dramatically compelling kind of take on the other films in the way that like Matt Reeves kind of took it from Rupert, whatever the guy's name is, from Rise, like, kind of get maybe a little bit more thematically richer with these films and these new characters. But yeah, I think this is a solid little return to the Planet of the Apes. I think it's really comforting how much these movies are willing to, indulge some pretty thoughtful, thematically heavy sort of ideas into, what's essentially, like you're saying, a pretty cookie cutter sort of action film. Not sacrificing the thrills or the special effects, certainly not special effects, but also allowing some, not like deep, but, like some enticing food for thought about the implications of a world such as this one. And I think honoring the sort of sci-fi heavy legacy of the original few films, certainly like the first and third original Planet of the Apes films. Though I do have to say, and I don't want to begrudge this point too much, but it's sort of implied that this is building up to the Charles Heston Planet of the Apes. And we saw in Rise that the plane, like the rocket ship left. That's why, like there are astronauts in space. How long is that mission that they're in space for?
I'd have to rewatch it, but it seemed like it was a long-term thing. Like they were trying to go like super far, and sure. Like, it's been a long time since I saw the original, but I think their mission was definitely like, we're going to go all the way. And it was projected to be like almost their whole lives or something like that. If I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I'm just saying that like that thought kind of crossed my mind watching. It was just like, how long is Charles Heston in space right now? Because it's been a little bit since stuff has gone down on the Planet of the Apes, as it were. But no, I mean, I think this is a fun little blockbuster. It's not my favorite of these. It's probably maybe my least favorite of the like new Apes. But, you know, still a very solid and definitely a very enjoyable summer blockbuster. Just kind of willing to be, you know, just a fun little thrill ride that isn't afraid to give you some things to chew on intellectually. That's fun.
Yeah. I do like it does have its spots. It has its kind of moments where it gets pretty cynical. It does get a bit bleak, you know, and it doesn't hold back in terms of, you know, characters actually die in this movie and they stay dead. Like it's not that Disney, you know what I mean? And I think the consequences come through. I'm impressed actually because it's about 2.5 hours. I wasn't really feeling the 2.5. You know, maybe other people will or did, but I think that it kind of moves. I think part of that is because the structure of this thing is pretty solid. Like we have a pretty, like, I feel like not a lot of time is wasted in this movie, and that establishing of like the world and everything is pretty efficient. Like we go to a place and we get to know the place, and then plot happens, and it's, you know.
I would agree for the most part. I think the beginning is a little slow going. Like I think it could have been tightened up. If there's anywhere it could be tightened up, it's probably in the beginning. But I also think that's just where Wes Ball is like at his best. Like I said, I think just kind of establishing this new like ape world and like the new mechanics and like their obsession with birds and like their kind of like where the apes are
how
now
they
in their
communicate,
evolutionary state. Yeah.
What they're capable of. And I honestly, that cold open where they're like climbing the like buildings and mountains and stuff, I'm like, this is a better Uncharted scene than any scene in Uncharted. Quite honestly, it's very true to that game, honestly. But I like the character Noah. I think that I like that he isn't just like a legacy character. He has no apparent connection to Caesar. I mean, hopefully they don't try to like spin that or twist that later. Please don't. But he's just like a new character like in this world, and there's nothing like built in assuming about him. Like his dad isn't even the chief. His dad is just like one of the elders, and he has a lot to live up to. And I also really like that, you know, he has a personality. He has kind of like a real character arc here. There's like a clear marker of the end of the movie. He's a different character. You know, when we get to him by the end, I don't want to say too much, but we actually see progression with him. That is pretty interesting. And it's what these movies tend to do really well. It's what made Caesar an interesting character. He always was kind of like changing over the movies, and you never quite knew. He was a little unpredictable in that way. You know, what is his stance on humans really going to be by the end of this one? And if there's one criticism, then it's like they keep building up to like trying to explain how things end up the way they are in that original Planet of the Apes, right? They keep being like, and this is how, and then they fake it out. And then they're like, oh, not yet. Actually, there's still more to go. Actually, it's not quite, you know, what you thought. And so I think that teasing is a little weird, and it's getting a little bit old. Just get to it. They're talking about doing 9 movies, and I'm just like, no, that's so many more. Like, I know it's like it's making money and everything, but although I haven't looked at the box office yet for Kingdom, we only have one day as we record this logged in, but it's looking like it might do okay. I haven't looked at the projections, but it's an expensive movie, 160 to 165 million reported budget so far. Of Thursday and Friday, it's made 22 million, so not a ton, but I don't remember what the last one made in its opening 2 days. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in the sense of like when I heard like we're gonna do 9 more, like even though I like these movies, there's a part of me that just is sighing. It's like, oh man, that just sounds like a commitment. Like, you know, like, yeah. I mean, it's like if they like made the first, or if they made Fast 5 and they were just like, we're gonna make 7 more of these. It's like, I know, but like maybe pace it out a little bit. Like maybe don't like act like, you know, that's the idea going forward, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think you know, I have to admire their willingness to kind of build upon the films prior, not only in the sense of the original prequel trilogy, I mean, but like the, you know, original, you know, 60s Planet of the Apes movies, and this is kind of honoring of legacy, with the exception of the Tim Burton one. I think everyone collectively is just like, that didn't happen.
Yeah. but, I barely even remember what happened in that, except Marky Mark. That's about it.
Well, I remember Ape Lincoln. That's a big thing I remember.
Mm.
You remember Ape Lincoln?
I remember a certain character design. I'm not sure if that's the exact one, but oh gosh. Okay, so I did look up the box office projections. It's projected to make around 55 million this weekend, which is not a lot. That's only a third of the budget, and we're going into the summer season. I mean, it's tough. Like, I don't know if this movie's going to have a ton of legs, not to make an ape pun, but like, I don't know if it's going to make its budget back. And I'm looking at War for the Planet of the Apes, which made about 490 million, but that's a pretty different box office environment in 2017. Plus, it's a big drop from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So if we're expecting another drop, like, this movie would have to make around, I would guess, like 450 million or more to kind of break even is my best educated guess, considering the marketing of this thing. But I don't know.
I'm a little bit more hopeful. I don't think it'll be in the top 5 for the end of the summer, but I do think it has maybe more legs than something like Fall Guy at the moment, because it just seems like people are like actually talking about and responding to it. And it's not like the conversation with Fall Guy where it's like, why aren't people seeing the movie?
Yeah.
Like, it's like people are like actually going out and watching it so far, and it seems like they're engaging with it and responding to the characters, and like going back and rewatching the previous 3 films and all that jazz.
Fair enough. Yeah, Fall Guys only made 72 million so far in its week. So in its first week.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do have to agree that Rika, I think that's the name of the orangutan.
Raka.
Raka.
My boy.
It's probably my favorite of the new characters here. I do like Noah. I think he's fine. I do have to say, though, I agree with Rika. Maybe I'm a little biased because of who I am, but I agree with his message that, humans are all right. Maybe we shouldn't go around disparaging them. Maybe they have something going for them. I don't know if you agree.
That it's not even that everybody hates them. It's just like, especially with these apes, there's sort of like, yeah, humans are pretty pointless. Like, who cares about them? Like, they to Noah, he doesn't even register them as not even just a threat, but just like they mean nothing to him. And I think that's way more interesting than like an outright hostility, because it kind of shows you that after 300 years, they really are kind of insignificant at this point. And I think that drives the point home better. And I got to agree with you about Raka. I mean, he capitalizes, I think, on something that these movies have been pretty good at overall. It's that they do have some humor to break up the like emotional tension and sadness, but the humor doesn't try too hard. Usually the humor kind of comes in like little spurts, and it's like, it's just enough to give you a nice little like, oh, this is kind of nice and fun before something super depressing happens. So I appreciate that at least.
But there's also something like you were mentioning, kind of like a Star Wars, like almost like a Yoda, kind of like this is the voice, like this is the guy.
He's more like Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I know you don't really have a sort of reference point for, but he even down to like he's part of like an order, like an ancient order that's like carrying on these traditions in secret. Right. So yeah, maybe
I'm just thinking of like the sacred texts and all that. Yeah. But no, I like it's like a fascinating idea of like, we established at the beginning of the film this idea of, like Caesar, spoiler alert for War, as passed on, and he is but a fading memory in the legacy of the apes. But like, when we are introduced to our bad guys, they're like going on like Caesar this and Caesar that, and we're like, what's going on? I don't remember Caesar being all about whatever these guys are doing. And the idea of like a new class of Noah like apes being like, I don't know, the Caesar guy sounds like he sucks.
Yeah.
And then Rika's like, no, you don't get it, son. Like, Caesar is the way. Like, monkey, or as you say, monkey see, monkey do. It's the...
And the C is spelled C-A-E.
Right. Like Caesar salad. Or Caesar the ape, I guess. I don't even need to include the salad.
There are some convenient things that do happen in this. Like, and it's one of those movies that like... certain things that seem like plot holes at first or total like immersion breaking moments where you're like, how's that? What? They get explained eventually of like, okay, so there is a reason, but they do trip you up. I think on like first viewing, there were moments when I was like, is this really going in the right direction? Like, is this really making sense? But then I'm like, okay, so they were just setting something up. It didn't make sense on purpose. And so I give it a pass on those sorts of things. And I won't get too specific once again, since that's something to experience when you're actually watching the movie. I only have a few Letterboxd reviews here that I thought were interesting. One was from Matt Lynch, who said, Wes Ball has a little juice, looks good, great VFX, a little slow and long at 2 hours and 25 minutes, feels like mostly an excuse to soft reboot back to the same old conflicts of the previous trilogy rather than move the franchise forward. I'll take it. And he gave it 3 stars. And that's kind of where I'm at, except I'm a little bit more positive. Like, yeah, it is a soft reboot. And I'm okay with that because I said this in my review too. My expectations are super low because they already completed a trilogy. If they're going to do more movies, I don't need more movies, but like if I get them, I don't have like expectations of like, they have to be like this. They have to do this. I just am sort of like, yeah, give me whatever story you want from these. I'm in, like, you know, as long as it's interesting and it's made well, then I'm fine with that. And it doesn't feel like a blank cash grab. It does feel like Friedman and Ball and them, like they're making movies that they want to make. So, you know, I'll take it too.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because like Planet of the Apes is a franchise, I would say in the broad scheme of things is probably more hits and misses, at least in terms of quality. But it's also been a franchise that has benefited from low expectations. Like the last time people, I think, had high expectations for a Planet of the Apes movie after they hadn't had a Planet of the Apes movie for a long time was the Tim Burton one. Mm-hmm. And that one kind of blew up in their face. So I remember when Rise of the Planet of the Apes came out, a lot of people, including myself, were kind of like, well, I don't know, like, why do we need another Planet of the Apes movie? It's like, it's a prequel. Like, we know what's going to happen. Like, why? Who cares? But then you see that movie and it's like, no, this is awesome. Like, this is great. Caesar's a really compelling character and stuff. And then, you know, you're like, Dawn, it's like, well, you know, they got lucky that first time, but, you know, are they going to be able to get it again? And then, you know, Dawn, I would say, is even better than, you know, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And maybe even controversially a little bit better than the original Planet of the Apes. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
I'd have to rewatch all the movies again because it's just been so long. Me too. You know?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've rewatched any of the Planet of the Apes.
I do suspect that, especially with the original Planet of the Apes, it's like its big popularity. It's sort of like its hook is the ending. You know what I mean? Like that's what people remember more than anything else, I think.
Sure, but I think with this one, I don't know. I don't know if my expectations are high or low. I think I was just kind of just like, whatever. I'll go in, hope it's good. And I think, you know, I think that is playing to its general benefit, at least critically. I think audiences are like, yeah, it's not, you know, maybe it's not as good as something like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but it's trying, it's doing what it's doing pretty well. Maybe it's a little basic in terms of structure and plot and even some of the characters, but it seems to be setting up an intriguing series of new films, whether that's under Wes Ball's direction or if that's going to be passed off to another director in the way that it was with Matt Reeves. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a real solid little return to the Planet of the Apes. And I say that as if we aren't already on the Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, there you go. Kit Laser gave it 3.5 stars and said, "Ooh, we went from post-apocalyptic to fantasy. Now you're speaking my language." And all the apes do literally speak my language now. It struggles here and there to hold my attention. I love that it soaks in the world and spends time wandering. But sometimes the wandering feels like meandering. Soak it in faster, maybe, you know? It feels exactly like Rise in many ways, flawed, sure, but a solid, engaging start to what could be an epic trilogy. We'll see. Apes together strong. I know that for sure. I would say, first of all, Cinemaholics together strong. And that is very important to make sure everybody knows.
Sure. And why Cookie John, I say.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a hanging mystery for me. But, you know, look, I think that, yeah, it's post-apocalyptic and fantasy is my take on that. It's still post-apocalyptic. It's still touching on those themes of like there was an old world. But yes, it's like a fantasy adventure for sure. We kind of mentioned it's kind of got the Star Wars, you know, sort of. So I also think that there's a little bit of Terminator in there too, just in terms of like the bleakness and the, you know, this is what happened and this could happen again and all that. I gotta say, for a movie where most of the characters are mocap apes, and it's been like that for several movies now, I like that, like, it's just gradually become more and more impressive over time because the movies have been successful and they've been able to like get the budgets and like now we can really go all out here. There are fewer and fewer human characters and the story is just like so much hinge on the apes themselves. And I love that because it's original. It's different, you know? There aren't a lot of live action movies that are willing to do that. Except for Lion King.
Two things with that, I'd say. One, I do think it is a credit to the film that the special effects are as established as they are and predicted to be as good as they are, that we aren't spending as much time talking about like how amazing the special effects are. which they are. I mean, it's just a credit, I think, to the last three films that's kind of a given that like the motion capture is amazing, and it would only be notable if it was a significant increase or decrease. I mean, from what it was before.
It would only be notable if it was noticeable, but you just take for granted of like, that is an ape riding a horse, you know, and it's like, that must have taken, there's like countless hours to get right. And they pull it off so seamlessly.
Yeah. I mean, another thing is, I think Wes Ball has talked about this. He was pretty adamant about using a lot of actual environments, like real locations and real settings, and using motion capture to capture that, to the point where apparently if you get the physical media version of the film, there's a version of the film that's going to be available where you just see the actors in their motion capture gear, like without the special effects. If you've ever wanted to know like what the difference is and how much the performance that they give on set in the gear factors into the performance, or how much CG. Because I remember that was like a big issue with Caesar and with Andy Serkis's work, that people were often discrediting his work, at least from like awards. Like, because like, I think a lot of people were like, why isn't he getting at least some awards consideration for playing Caesar? It's like obviously one of the better performances of the year, but people were like kind of, you know, pushing their glasses up to their nose and being like, well, I don't know. I mean, how much of that's being aided by special effects and how much of it's a performance? I think we're at a point now where we recognize that, like, you know, acting is maybe aided by special effects at times, but that doesn't carry or define the performance at this point. And CG can often capture the nuances and particularities of a performance in a way that maybe weren't credited or as noticed before. But in any case,
I couldn't agree more. I think that's perfectly said, because if anything, it shows, like, especially with Andy Serkis, I mean, what he had to do had never really been done to that level before. And so he deserved accolades for pioneering it, if anything else, and doing it. I think it just was underestimated or underappreciated how difficult it was.
I think that's going all the way back to Gollum. Like the same conversation was
same guy.
And yeah. And if anything, maybe even should have gotten more credit for Gollum than with Caesar. Not to say it's a better performance, but just because it was so pioneering for what it was.
It was a true turning point. Yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, maybe he'll get his accolades with this new Gollum movie that they're doing now, that he's starring and directing and whatever that's going to be.
Gollum movie?
Oh, you didn't hear about this?
What?
Yeah, Andy Serkis is directing and starring in a movie called The Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum.
Keep it. I don't want it. Get it out of my face. Cancel it. It's canceled. Will Ashton, you need to fly back to Palm Springs. We're going to Hollywood. We're taking care of this ourselves. No.
I like that you're like, oh yeah, no, we should give Andy Serkis an Oscar. Why not? Wait, he's going to get his own movie now? Get the heck out of here. Yeah.
Gollum? No. Like, just no. Like,
Gollum?
That sounds so dumb. Like, a Gollum
Shoot
movie?
him.
That's like when they said we were going to get a Yoda movie. No, thank you. Not just no, thank you. Like, go to jail.
I didn't know we were going to get a Yoda movie at one point.
We were. It was like part of the Kathleen Kennedy's like original game plan. And
oh, wait. Yeah. Like this was like announced back in like
2015 or whatever it was. Yeah, it was like
I
the first
vaguely remember. Yeah.
They're like, we'll make a Yoda movie, an Obi-Wan movie. And it's like, everyone's like, wait, what? Like, stop.
I didn't realize that was like actually in consideration. I thought that was more of like a fan online sort of thing. Like maybe we can get our Yoda movie because everyone loves Yoda.
I think it was like a strategic sort of like, maybe it'll be in the slate kind of thing that got leaked to the press. I don't remember the details. It was about 10 years ago. But anyway, Chris Parker, I gave it 4.5 stars and said, magnificent, a truly impressive and worthy follow-up to the last trilogy, rich with emotions, interesting characters, and a very compelling story. I was fully immersed and in awe of it all. I'm so happy this delivered. My only gripes are in its pacing and surface-level exploration of the manipulated legacy of Caesar. Aside from that, I'm excited to see where this goes. And then the last one, it kind of goes with this comment. They're very similar. And this last one I have, this is from Alex Coleman, who I think we've read before, who said 3.5 stars, a true visual spectacle. That last act is so Avatar: The Way of Water coded. Impressed how they continue to reinvent this franchise with new interesting stories and characters. Exploring Caesar's legacy post-death is a great angle. Wish we got even more of it. It's a bit too long, but nevertheless a solid entry into the Apes verse. Looking forward to its inevitable sequel. So first off, yes, it does tee up a sequel. I think we've kind of given that away for sure. But yeah, I think Avatar: The Way of Water was another movie I was thinking about a lot. Not just because of the visual effects and not just because like there is like a big water sequence, but it does have a lot of like this new movie more than the other ones does have a lot of James Cameron in it in terms of like the the characters being a little bit more archetypical, if that's the right word, archetypal. And they have like 3 sentences that kind of sum them up, and you just sort of watch them blossom from there. He like plants the seed of like, this is that character. This is Anaya. You know, he talks big, but he's a bit of a softie. You know what I mean? And then you just kind of watch those characters become more complex from, you know, not super complex, but like that's kind of a Cameron thing, right? So I think in that angle, I do think that Ball was probably taking a lot from the first Avatar when he was kind of putting this together with Friedman.
Yeah, and another performance, Zoe Saldana, for the first and second Avatar, I feel like was at least, I mean, I remember at least some people were considering that for like awards consideration, but it was still kind of the same thing as with Andy Serkis, where people are like, yeah, it's more the CG.
Yeah.
Which I don't agree with, especially upon rewatching the first Avatar a year or so ago. But in any case, yeah, I mean, I think we didn't really spend all that much time talking about the humans, the actors and the characters. I don't know if you have any thoughts on.
I want to be careful with that, just because I think that there are certain twists involving the humans I didn't want to give away.
Oh, okay. So that's the one that that's the cameo you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay. I wasn't sure exactly who you were referencing, but no, I mean, that's probably my second favorite character in the film.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a great character and a great addition to the movie. My only criticism, and it kind of ties to these comments, is that I think what's going on with the humans and the message around that doesn't tie super well or cohesively with the whole manipulated legacy of Caesar, like these commenters are putting on. And I think what they're touching on, it's not something I considered when I watched the movie, but I think it's pretty fair. And I feel like I've been swayed by folks who've been saying this, who's basically, it's like, it is kind of surface level. Like it's there, it's in the movie that like, yeah, they're manipulating what Caesar was about, but it's not that, it doesn't say that much about it necessarily. It almost like they're kind of waiting to say more about it, but not to give anything away with this movie. By the end, it's sort of like, well, what else are they going to do with that hook? Like, does it keep going? I don't know. I'm a little bit sort of like, I'd have to see the next movie to maybe make up my mind about certain elements of this movie, which is not good. I feel like this movie should stand on its own more than anything else. This should stand upright, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got that vibe too. Like I feel like even though Rise of the Planet of the Apes is setting up a new franchise, I feel like it stands on its own more than this one, where it feels like, okay, yeah, by the end, I feel like we kind of need, it's expecting another film to kind of like bring us the proper cohesive like epilogue of sorts. Like it's just kind of like, hey, we'll figure that out next time, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think her name's Freya Allan. Is that
that's her,
the actress that played
Freya Allan?
And I don't know if we mentioned that her name's Nova, right? Or
Noah? Initially, Peter Macon's character calls her Nova, but then we find out she has another name. Yeah.
But Nova is a reference to War for the Planet of Apes. That's like the human that Caesar like takes under his wing, I think, right?
Yeah, I think he implies at one point that they start calling lots of humans Nova, like it becomes a title, if anything. Okay. No, Freya Allan.
And that's the stuff I like. Like I like how this movie like is thoughtful about the like tie back to the others. Like in a way that I feel like other franchise would be like, wink, wink, nod, nod. That's from the last one.
Yeah. And I think Freya Allan's very good in this. I think that she brings a lot to a character who's full of mystery. So people might recognize her most from The Witcher on Netflix. She plays one of the main characters in that. She was in that Gunpowder Milkshake thing with Karen Gillan. That wasn't very good. But and also she was in The Third Day, that Jude Law thing that I think you saw for TIFF years ago. But yeah,
I did not see that. I did see Gunpowder Milkshake. That's the only one of those three that I have.
I thought you said you watched The Third Day. I don't think you reviewed it.
No, I did not. I did not watch that.
If you say so. But yeah,
I mean, I know I watched a lot of TIFF. I think I would have remembered if I watched that.
Okay, all right. Maybe you didn't watch it because it was like a series or something. It was like 3 episodes or something like that.
I think that's what you're thinking of, because I think I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And then I learned it was like an HBO thing. I'm like, forget that. I have movies to watch.
Yeah. Are we good to go for the Rotten Tomatoes game?
Well, you know what? Sure.
We haven't played it in a while. Did you play it for Civil War with Corey?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Right.
And Corey was pretty on the ball, but I think he might have had...
He was on the Wes Ball.
Yeah. But I think he might have had some peaks at the score in a way that I'm more true to, you know. And in that spirit of being honest, I will say I have heard the cinema score, so I don't know if you just want to start with that one because I know what that is.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't looked at the cinema score yet, so I could guess that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I've only seen the Rotten Tomatoes. So, okay. We'll start with Rotten Tomatoes, and then, we'll switch it up. We'll mix it up later. Okay, so we'll start with the critic score. 211 reviews have been counted so far. One of them is mine. So you have a little bit of a hint there. I liked it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. So, Will Ashton, what do you think the critic score is right now, as of today?
I think most people are liking it. I don't know if they're liking it as much as the previous 3 films. And because I remember the Matt Reeves ones, I think were in the 90s. Like, I think Dawn was probably like 96 or something.
Sounds right. I can double check that, but.
And I think War was like 92. I mean, they might have gone up or down since then because I haven't kept up with the scores, but.
I'll reveal it after your guess.
With this one, I think it's going to be very high. I don't know if it's as high as that, but I think it's going to be certified fresh, to be sure.
Okay.
So I'm going to say 86%.
It is lower, but it is in the 80s. So I give you a little bit of an extra guess there. What do you think?
Is it 84%?
It is exactly 80%.
Oh, okay. It's lower than I expected. Yeah.
Now, so Rise of the Planet of the Apes was 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's kind of comparable with that. And it's probably going to fluctuate. It might go down a little bit more from here. And Dawn of the Planet of the Apes was 91%. But War for the Planet of the Apes is the highest, 94%.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
that makes sense.
I think we touched on it, but that's my favorite one of these movies.
Okay, that's interesting. I think a lot of the goodwill kind of came from, like, that was like the last one. It was kind of like a Return of the King, maybe sort of thing for some people where it's just like, you know what? These movies are good.
There you go.
In a way that, like, I think Dawn's my favorite, the previous trilogy, but like, I could see people, in the same way that like Two Towers is my favorite Lord of the Rings film.
Yeah.
But I recognize that like when people see Return of the King, they're like, not only is this a good end to the series, or to the film, it's like a great, trilogy capper. I can see people having that relationship to War for the Planet of the Apes, so that makes sense.
Same here. All right, and then we'll say the audience score. We have 500 plus verified ratings, so this is a tough one to do, when we're still in the opening weekend, but yeah, give it your best guess.
Well, if it's lower critically than I thought, I'm curious if the audience score is comparable, or if it's maybe a little bit higher. I think it's going to be a little bit higher. I'm going to say 85%.
I probably would have done the same kind of guess, honestly, but no, it's also 80% right now. So it's the same as the critic score. Everyone's a critic. That's what I'm getting from this.
Everyone unilaterally at the same time are just saying good.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like Wes Ball's like great, and everyone goes good.
Yeah. That's awesome. And they're like, no. Okay, so for cinema score, I haven't seen this one, and you have, so you can tell me if I'm right. So cinema score, folks in Vegas. My wife was just in Vegas, so I could ask her for a hint.
I was briefly in Vegas for a layover on Monday.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you might. That's where you saw the cinema score.
Maybe I bumped some shoulders with some of the people that were cinema scoring.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think it's either a B+ or an A-. I'm gonna say because of the length, I'm leaning a little bit more toward B+. But I think it's a satisfying enough movie that I think General Cinemas it's like an A-. So I'll go with A-.
I was just double checking to make sure, but I was correct. It is a B.
It's a B. That's lower than I thought. I feel like it's just such a, it's just like a plain good fantasy adventure movie. I thought people would respond better. Maybe it is length. Maybe people are like, it's too much of my day.
It is the lowest rated Planet of the Apes cinema score since the Tim Burton one. But that's not really saying much because the last three were like good to great. So it's like, Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll finish off with Letterboxd. We have 48,000 watches on Letterboxd. So not a ton yet, but again, it's still opening weekend. People are probably going to watch it today. We're recording this on a Saturday. So, Mr. Ashton, we have an average rating already. What do you think it is?
Oh, that's interesting. I am going to say 3.5.
Perfect. That's exactly 3.5. Well done.
Well, it just seems like the consensus from both Cinema Score and from the Rotten Tomatoes audience and critic scores, everyone's just going good.
Yes.
So I figure 3.5 is the equivalent of good.
Well, I feel like with Cinema Score, B is not very good. Consider it's.
That's true. By Cinema Score standards, that is kind of low. But I feel like for average, like like if I were to rate a movie B, that's good. Yeah. Like it's a good film.
Yeah.
Not like amazing, but it's like a good film.
No, I agree. All right, so we are kicking off the summer season. Normally we do a summer movie preview, but we probably won't. We didn't even do a top movies of 2023. We probably should.
Don't. Yeah, that's priority number one before we do a summer movie preview. We might as well do a spring movie preview at the rate that we're going.
Yeah, and there have been a bunch of movies that have come out that we've really slowed down in our content for Cinemaholics. We didn't talk about Challengers. We didn't talk about Fall Guy. I haven't seen those movies.
I still think we should do Challengers, but I won't push you. I know you're busy and traveling.
There's room for it. I don't think that's, we didn't do Godzilla vs. Kong, The New Empire. We didn't do the new Ghostbusters. I'm kind of okay with not doing either of those movies because I wasn't interested in. If there was any movie like besides Challengers, I was like, I do want to watch and talk about, probably be Abigail. But yeah, I don't know when I would get to that, to be perfectly honest with you. Fallout is what I'd rather talk about more than anything.
We almost saw Abigail when we were together in Palm Springs.
Yeah, we were looking at showtimes. Yeah, because we've never seen a movie together. Well, technically, we've been in a theater together because we watched Mickey's PhilharMagic.
I was just about to say, you say that as if we haven't watched PhilharMagic together.
That was a magical experience.
The 3D glasses and everything.
Yes. We did. We practiced our Goofy and Mickey impressions in the waiting room, the lobby. Yeah. That was a good time.
John is very good at. I'm sure the listeners know this from our previous cold opens, but John's very good at doing Mickey Mouse. What does Mickey Mouse think of King of the Planet of the Apes, by the way? It's under his umbrella.
It's still kind of early. I don't want to wake people up in our house. So I can't. I've done it before, and I've literally woken people up because to do Mickey, I have to hit some decibels, because it's Mickey. It's like it's definitely a whole thing. But I'll save that for a surprise. Yes, your Goofy is much better than mine, that's for sure. But yeah, no, Challengers I think should definitely be on the docket. But we have a big summer coming up. The next few things, I'm gonna maybe be seeing If on Wednesday. I might see Garfield tomorrow. And yeah, I know you have Garfield screening for Garfield tomorrow as well.
Nope, I
thought you said it was.
For one, it's not a screening; it's a paid. Film,
it's like got it. Still,
that is on the 19th, so I still got over a week to go.
Oh, I wonder if I have the dates mixed up, and maybe mine is also around that time. I'll double check. But
we are through hell or high water doing a review of the Garfield movie. I will not take no for an answer.
Oh, it's a good thing you said that because yes, my screening is also the 19th, so I had that wrong.
Okay, well that's good. I think we're seeing it honestly like at the exact same time.
Yeah, probably. Mine's at 1:00
with the time. Oh, never mind. Actually, wait. Actually, I'm seeing it before you because I think mine's at 1.
That makes sense.
So
yeah, with the time difference.
Yay! It balances out. I get to see Garfield before John, just barely. But yeah, there's Garfield, and so yeah, then If is going to be the next thing I'm seeing, and then possibly there's also a screening for Furiosa that I might be able to go to, but it's a little bit. I do want to
this week.
Furiosa and Garfield are coming out the same weekend. Can you believe that?
I mean, it's how do you choose? It serves.
Well, that's
both.
The thing.
It serves the same audience equally, I would say.
Well, I don't actually think they're doing it in the same way with Barbenheimer, but there are some people who are like, what if we do Garfiosa?
Garfiosa?
Garfiosa.
Well, in that case, you start with Garfield or you start with Furiosa?
Yeah, I think you start with Garfield and then you go to Furiosa because I think Furiosa is a lot. Like it's like really long and it's, it's going to be intense in action. And I guess if you want like a cool down, you can do Garfield because it's probably going to be
That's what I was thinking. That's my argument. I'm like, yeah, you go from Furiosa and you're just like, at the end of it, you're huffing, puffing, sweaty. Right. You've lost your jacket. There's like blood on your face and you're like, I'm at the end of my rope. But then you go up to the usher and he's just like, are you sure you can do this? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. And then you go into Garfield and it's like, then you come out with like lasagna on your pants.
Well, that's what I was saying. I mean, you have to like probably go to Garfield first because you have to get, the
you gotta eat
license.
First, and then
we got to get the license, microwave lasagna, cook it up, run into the theater so it's still hot for when the movie's playing. Eat that lasagna while you're watching Garfield eat lasagna, so you're akin to each other.
But if you do, but if you do Garfield next, because you probably would want to start with popcorn and a soda during Furiosa because you're going to be hungry. But then, like that way, you can watch Garfield nice and stuffed. Feeling like all lazy and like, oh, I can't go anywhere. I'll watch Garfield.
Well, I was thinking like you have the lasagna and you get all fat and stuffed up for Garfield, And then when you're watching Furiosa, you're like running around in circles because it's so hyper, and so you burn off the calories that you just made from Garfield.
This is a tough debate. I honestly, like, I feel like it needs to continue to wage. You know, that's our war. For the Planet of the Apes.
If you were still on Twitter, this would be a great poll. But
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I have zero regrets. My life, my mental health has been infinitely better since not using Twitter, and that's how it's going to stay. So, okay. Speaking of staying, let's not stay any longer on this podcast. Thanks so much for listening. And don't forget, if you like the show, hit us up, and hopefully we'll be coming out with another episode soon, sooner than we've been doing.
Sure. No, I'll see if it means that I can talk about another movie with my pal John on the mic.
That's a tall order. But all right, from the Internet California, I'm John Negroni.
And from the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Will Ashton, and Apes Together Strong.
See you next time.